I'm E.
I'm Rob.
I'm Dan.
Welcome to the next movement, folks. Dan Lish, thank you so much for joining us. This is both an honor and a privilege.
Indeed. Likewise, thank you very much.
Yeah.
It'll be fun.
Absolutely, absolutely. So I think most of the folks listening to this are familiar with you through your artwork and drawings, which are incredible. And we have a lot of questions around that, particularly the work that you have done through the EgoStrip series you've created. But I'm wondering if folks know about all the lives that you have lived outside of this. So in learning more about you, I quickly learned that you have touched just about every element in hip hop, right? So there's obviously your artwork, but you've also done graffiti. You've been a b-boy, you've DJ'd, and I hear that you even tried your hand at freestyling at one point.
Yeah, it was terrible. Terrible. Yeah, I was 14.
Oh wow, okay.
Left it there.
Yeah.
Oh,
it was horrible. We might as well just move on because it's not even worth mentioning. I don't even know where you pulled that up from, man. It's not even. Oh, it was awful. So
yeah.
And to be quite frank, I mean, I was incredibly passionate about hip hop and still am, but I was quite an average b-boy, you know, and I mean, the graffiti writing excelled more obviously because of the gift, I guess, and the DJing was just the passion, or having a good ear for music and joining the dots, and I sort of show that within my sets. You know, I don't really play nowadays, you know, not too much because I'm focusing just on the artwork and family and everything, but yeah, the MCing thing didn't happen. I just focused on, or got obsessed with the rest of the elements.
Yeah, and hearing you talk about it, it sounds maybe like you had this really strong connection with art because you felt confident in it.
It was just a great expression, escapism. You know, it was cathartic and sort of meditative. I was on another planet doing it, and I felt that at times with dance. You know, especially not during battles. I wasn't particularly good at battles because I'd get very nervous. So I was more spontaneous if it happened in a club or something like that where I could express myself, and then you're just in another place, you know, when they're done. And the same with the artwork as well, and the graffiti as well. I mean, again, I can't claim to be doing full cars and just going crazy on the illegal tip, although that was covered. I felt more comfortable finding a derelict building and just focusing on the craft instead of just shooting my shit around town, you know, you know, I mean, that was obviously a part of it because you're a young man, you're full of testosterone, and, you know, you just want to, you know, especially if your childhood was a bit difficult in places, you want to express yourself, and, you know, here I am, do you know what I mean? Get it out there, and but it was just a brilliant vehicle for just self-expression and self-empowerment.
So as we've been talking about, like, you sort of immersed yourself in hip-hop culture, and at some point all of what you've taken in ended up coming out in your drawings. So I wonder if you could talk a bit about how that happened, like how you got started drawing hip-hop artists.
Which it's always, because you have to go back and think of this sort of nucleus. But I mean, having lived out in New York, then moving back in 2006, I had a friend, big up Dan Flanagan, who just said, why don't you just incorporate all your experiences in your art? And I wasn't ready yet because I'd just left that battle scene. I was quite burnt out. We just relocated back to the UK. Family, I think my wife was pregnant at the time with our first child, and my head just wasn't there. So I had to separate myself from it and just take it back to basics, you know, good health and focusing on the new family and everything. And it was on my journeys from Brighton, south coast of England, up to London, because I was still a concept artist for the video game industry. So I was doing that up to London, and then it was very organic. You know, I think it was Rakim and Pete Rock that gave me a shout out for the block party illustration that I did that is bootlegged all over the place, and it's very well known. I did that for Break DJ Lacey, and it's that classic fly on the wall scene of you know, block party, maybe in the late 70s, early 80s at a push in I guess it would be the Bronx, nowhere specific within the BX, but and they just gave me a shout for that, and just said, remember where it comes from, remember the roots, blah blah blah. So that got sort of quite a lot of people interested, and then I did a little thank you illustration. The first one was to Paradise Gray from the X Clan, because he was getting some of my prints for the museum, and so I just did him in a very, it almost looked like sort of Robert Crumb illustration. There was no b-boy bravado or anything. He was just looking sort of like he's just forgotten his house keys and it's just dawned on him or something. You know, it was very straight, humble sort of illustration. And I thought, oh, this is nice. This feels good. Because I always used to do an ode to New York. It was always hardcore b-boy, this and that, and battle mode, you know, and it was exhausting.
Yeah.
So this is just very relaxed. And I thought, oh, this feels nice. It was a feeling. And then the next one, yeah, Rakim. So I thought, I'll do a little illustration of Rakim, and I thought, how could I do this instead of him just like, you know, gold on and all this? I thought, right, I'll do him in a nice, humble interior. Maybe he's at the kitchen table writing rhymes, and what rhymes is it going to be? And then I was thinking about what specific rhyme, and you know, about the planets, balls of clay, and just follow the leader. And so I just did this sort of all these planets emerging from his head. I mean, not exactly, because that'd be disgusting, but you know, it's in his consciousness, the stream of consciousness is happening while he's writing all these images that are, you know, because he's very visual, and so that just went really well, and I did all the little MCs he mentions. I think it was in my melody, so I put a couple of things in there, and it just felt great, and then that was like, oh, you know, that got well received. And then I did Pete Rock next, him twiddling, you know, in the basement, did him like a sort of mad professor with all these sort of diodes and all this weird, like Frankenstein type equipment. You know, I didn't get very specific, like SP 1200s or whatever like this, and the 12 Technics 1200s or whatever.
Yeah.
It was very fantastical, and I was merging and morphing the city with electronics and crumbling buildings and just turntables with little feet on, and you know, it's just that it was celebrating the creative freedom, and that's why that EgoStrip thing came in, where it was stripping away the ego for myself as well, because I always felt I had to sort of, oh, I have to represent and all this stuff. Do you know what I mean? Sometimes it's a bit toxic, it's a bit limiting, and having shed that gave me freedom. And it was also a little nod to EgoStrip magazine that I used to really like as well.
I imagine that spending a significant amount of time in New York City really influenced and further strengthened your relationship with hip hop. But it's clear to me that even before this big move, I mean, you were heavily invested and involved in the culture while you were living in the UK, and really formed community around this. I mean, you and some college friends even had your own radio show. So I wondered if you could talk a little bit about the hip hop scene in the UK during the 80s and the 90s from your observations. And as far as you could tell, how did it differ from what was happening in the United States?
I got into it sort of in the early 80s, where you'd just get little snippets on the TV, or it was very hard to get hold of, but it seemed magical, you know. It was completely new and dynamic, and had that great spirit of rebellion, which I'm still like that now. So also living in Suffolk, my father's from Brooklyn, New York, so he was in the Air Force. There's two large or maybe three, I forget now, but around Suffolk in East Anglia in the UK. So there's Mildenhall and Lakenheath, and a lot of DJs, you know, when they were there, they'd drop off their records to the second-hand record stores, shops, you know, in our town and the surrounding towns. So we'd get the hand-me-downs, Bambaata's Def Mix, and just, do you know what I mean? That just comes up to my head because my boy Just One got that from, I think it was the Record Peddler or some little record store in my hometown of Bury St Edmunds, and I was really jealous because that was rare as hen's teeth and we couldn't get hold of it. But anyway, you'd get a lot of wax coming through, and at the jams that we'd have, you know, you'd get a lot of Americans supporting as well because they'd come from the air bases. So you always had that connection, especially with my father and growing up with the soul sound from my mother. So I always had that connection. Sorry, I'm losing the thread again.
It's okay.
The difference, I really couldn't tell you. I mean, we always looked up to New York, and it was like a crazy fantasy land, you know, for me personally, like, oh my God, this is... So my imagination went crazy, and even getting cheesy, sort of the Rocksteady Crew Up Rock 12-inch, you know, with Dozer's graffiti on it, and it was just great. And I had to redraw that for so many friends. I just got so sick and tired of doing these mugsy characters of Dozer's graffiti, and then when Subway Art came, that was just amazing getting that. I think that's one of the most stolen books in England in history of bookmaking is Subway Art, and then probably Spray Can Art after that, you know, the Henry Chalfont and Martha books. And so we went through a lot of copies of that. But it was, yeah, we always looked up to New York, and even saying that, it would be Philly, you know, and LA and the West Coast as well. So it was that whole American thing, really. All the main cities that were speaking loud to us there. From what we could get hold of, imported vinyl was expensive. You know, get the pirate radios. I'd have all the metal coat hangers around my window trying to get the pirate radio stations from London and Mike Allen and Tim Westwood and all these early larger hip hop shows. It was very hard to get hold of, but that made it extra special. There was obviously, you got a big West Indian community, you know, in a lot of the cities around the UK. So later we started getting our own style. There was a bit more chatting, a bit more of the sort of the London or the Yardie toasting that was influencing a lot of our MCs. We emulated the American sound, and that was even in the accent. And you listen to Hijack's first LP, which the Style Wars, Hijack, they were so advanced DJing as well that they even influenced, you know, Q-Bert and Mixmaster Mike and all these guys, you know. So I mean, they just got obsessed with it, you know, and just held that moniker, that real stripped down hardcore sound. But again, it was always an ode to that the New York roots. Maybe because they felt you feel that's the home of it, you know. You pay homage to it. Yeah. So it's understandable. And when you're a young guy, you know, trying to express yourself, and you want to get to the closest of the roots to it as possible, maybe that's why you just think, well, yeah, I'm just going to talk in an American Yankee man accent, you know, and not my own accent. I mean, it's completely different now. We speak in the mother tongue now. You know, it's grown very well. You know, all over the world now, everyone are rhyming in their own tongue instead of really doing. You know, even in France as well, NTM, they were still rhyming American. But this is my perception of it. Someone else's story might be a little bit different. Yeah. I mean, nonetheless, I think that's a really interesting to hear. Sure. So you're watching the Mecca from afar in the UK, and then eventually you make the move and you're really immersed in the scene. And so one of the things I really appreciate about the EgoStrip book is all of these pictures that you have at the beginning. I mean, there are pictures of Cool Herc, Red Alert, Jazzy J, Large Pro, and a bunch of other folks. I feel like you could start a whole archive. So I was just curious, did you take most of these pictures? Are you talking about the photographs right at the beginning? Yeah, the photos in the front of the book. Just being Mr. Nerdy, wandering around. If I, you know, it might be Crotona Park or Rosedale Park where I'd bump into Cool Herc, and I'd meet up with Buddy Esquire as well. We become really good friends. So sometimes, well, I mainly took the pictures. Sometimes Buddy took a couple of pictures, you know, or I'd be in Rosedale Park and King Sun was there. And I was always a fan of him just because he was so massive as well. I'm just like, I'm intrigued with like just giant men, not in a gay way. Do you know what I mean? Just like, wow, they look like they look like just kings, just like
Right.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Just like whoa.
Sure,
And,
sure.
so I was like, yeah, you know, Frosty Freeze might have been standing there. Oh, Frost, can you take a picture of me and King's son or something like that? So, yeah, all those fanboy pictures were, because it was before selfie sticks and mobile.
Yeah.
Right.
So I had like,
Yeah.
you know, a bag just it had yes, y'all in the in the side pouch just to get all the autographs. And then the other pouch, there was a video camera, and then the 35mm camera, and maybe there was a little digital camera as well. But I was just nerding out because I knew my time would be brief there. You know, I thought I'd be there for 10, 15 years, but there was a couple of tragic deaths in my wife and my family. So she said, look, let's make a move back in a couple of years. So, you know, that's the reason why we come back. But that's why I just documented so much. And because I was already in my late 20s, I knew what I loved, and I went straight for the back to b-boying again. Just got down with Dynasty Rockers and breaking in style. And they were from Brooklyn and Queens. And I practiced with Ready to Rock up at Westchester Square in the Bronx. You know, and then I'd go all the way back downtown and wait for the ferry. And if I missed the Staten Island ferry, I'd have to wait an hour or 2 hours. And I was killing myself doing this, but I absolutely loved the process of going up and down, you know what I mean, subways at silly o'clock in the morning just to practice. And then and then go back to work on Fifth Avenue for Barnes and Noble during the day. So it was madness.
Yeah.
But incredible experiences nonetheless, I bet. Yeah.
I think that's where the ADHD thing, the hyperfocus comes into it, man, because I'm just like get obsessive. And this is pre-children, so I could divulge.
Right.
You know.
Yeah. For sure.
Ella's that nigga. Your favorite artist sees me as a threat. But you can still be drenched in blood, tears, and sweat, and tossed off a jet. Whose written hymns electrify your ally when you apply stun guns. That still put in work with his sleeves rolled and his tie undone. So tell me, how can I forget?
Well, at some point, of course, you get into album covers, album art. I wondered if we could just spend some time talking a little bit about some of the cover art that you've done and just hear from you about how they came about. So the first one, which I think might be your most recent, is the cover art for Elzhi's Zeitgeist, which came out, I think that was last year.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, Dudley Declaim, Dudley Perkins just gives me a shout every now and then. I'm very grateful for Dudley. Big up Dudley. You know, it's great. He just hits me up through Instagram and just says, you know, can you do this for me? Boom, boom, boom. You know, just and Elzhi. It took quite a while. I'm thinking it was about 2 years before it actually got released. But yeah, that was cool. He just gives me, I think, really 100% creative freedom as long as I know the theme. He's very relaxed and easygoing, you know, and I did it in the back garden, you know, nice sunny day, inked it in maybe 2 hours, 3 hours, the front cover, then focus on the back because it was produced by Georgia, and I've always been a fan of Georgia.
Yeah.
Georgia's production, and she's extremely talented. That's how Dudley got in contact with me, actually, because I did an illustration of Georgia and Dudley holding up their son. It was just very, you know, that family thing and the creativity and everything. It was just a big ode to that, and he really liked it. So that's how we got working together.
You said you were in the garden when you were drawing it. Is that where this big flower comes from on the cover?
No, it was because what was the name? What was the name of the LP again?
Zeitgeist.
Zeitgeist. So it was about change. It was about that sort of roller coaster. I can't really sort of explain the etymology of the word zeitgeist, but you know what I'm saying? It's that sort of crumbling of something old and something new being birthed. And that's where I got it from. And he was the sort of Lone Ranger, sort of. He's the survivor, you know, just treading through this environment, still there, still doing his thing. You know, it's just, I'm not really selling it too well, but it was something in around that. Again, that ode to the creative journey and birthing new things and planting seeds and all these other analogies. Yeah. I'm always after sort of visual metaphors, and that's the exciting thing, really. You know, what can I make this stand for? And 50% of the time, I'm not too bothered if the viewer gets it or not.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just like again, that ego stripping thing, a shedding away of just exploration and bearing oneself and seeing if it works, and if it doesn't, try something else.
Yeah. I also wanted to ask about J Period. I know you've worked with him a couple of times in a couple of different ways.
I'll still am. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm thinking specifically though of Story to Tell. What's the story behind Story to Tell?
Well, we've been working on so many things together since I did a native tongues exhibition, or I was involved in the native tongues exhibition that was in New York. But Jay bought a print, a De La Soul print from there, and just reached out to me after that. And then we did he wanted an Outcast mix. He did a live mix, and he put a cover to that, and that went really smoothly, and it just went boom boom, just carried on.
Yeah.
On multiple projects. Wakanda forever ever. Excuse me. Many I can't really remember. There's been a lot.
Yeah.
It's ongoing. So Story to Tell was a natural progression from that. And it's been a brilliant journey. We're working. I have to be careful with what I'm saying, because there's still a lot of projects we're working on together, and I'm not allowed to. I'm definitely not allowed to announce them. But Story to Tell is still in progression, because it's a big project.
Right. Yeah, there are more chapters.
Working with the artists was phenomenal, and at that time, I was putting the book together, so he'd help me out by hanging out with Dave Chappelle. He'd give Dave a book, and Dave absolutely loved it, and then gave me a shout, and that helped really sell more books. So I was very grateful for that, and it was just a very enjoyable roller coaster ride.
Yeah, sounds like it. Yeah. There are plenty of other album covers that we could talk about. I love your story about Raekwon's The Wild. So you've told the story a number of times in different places, so I don't want to take up our time with it, but if you haven't heard it, folks, try to find it. I think I heard it on Crate 808 with Cam. It's also in your book, at the end of your book.
Yeah.
But it's a great story. I just want to ask you about one more collaboration, and that was with De La Soul. De La's been on our minds a lot recently. Yeah. You ended up working with them to create a piece that they then used to raise money for the Anonymous Nobody.
That's right.
I'm wondering how that came about. Like, how did you end up getting involved in that?
I cannot remember the significant piece of artwork that Poss liked, but I was pleasantly surprised. He started following me, and it's been a great support of my work. So I'm very, very grateful for that. And he just reached out on Instagram and just said, "Look, we're working on a project. I need this and that." I originally didn't get it right the first time, because he wanted the three guys, the crew, as they were back then, and I did them looking contemporary. So I just had to redo it, which was fine. I wasn't like disappointed, but I was just maybe there was communication faux pas or whatever. I don't know, but second time I just wanted to get it right, and there was many. That they all aged well. So I mean, there wasn't drastic changes.
Right.
Just the hairstyles, man. They're not really rocking those hairstyles anymore. Yeah. So, but I can understand they wanted the three behind Rise and De La Soul's Dead style. The 87, 88 era, which is cool. It's a lot more fun. Those haircuts are a lot of fun to illustrate. Yeah, that went well, and that. They killed it, didn't they? They got the funds within, I don't know, was it under 24 hours, wasn't it? Or 48 hours or something, I can't remember now.
Yeah.
And we chatted on the phone a little bit, and I know he's a busy dad, so I was very conscious about not taking up his time. So I probably didn't get to the point. I was waffling on, and hey Dan, what do you want now? Sort of thing, So I sometimes do that, but it was done. It was a great thing, and that piece sold. That was one of the pieces that sold at Sotheby's, the exhibition last March as well, which was very nice. Yeah, the original ink drawing.
Nice.
I want to take us back to EgoStrip for a minute and talk about one of my favorite pieces, the one that you did on Wu-Tang. To me, it's really perfect because you have all the group members' heads packed into this samurai suit that has a speaker on the front of it. There's bees swarming around and several skyscrapers in the background. I love it. And my question is really around your relationship with Staten Island. I understand that you lived there for a bit. I think this is where you and your wife got married.
That's right. St. George's.
Okay, yeah. And you say in your book that you used to visit the Woo store when you were there. And I'm just so curious, like, what was the atmosphere like back then in the store, but also just in Staten Island?
Well, I was at St. George's because it was just cheaper rent than the city. And I went to Jersey City, but I won't get into detail there, but I got put off and I ended up in Staten Island and had that $1 million view, you know, before the towers came down, which was sad. That's when we were in Brooklyn. But for me, it was one, cheap rent. Two, I think there was it was calm. It was a calming effect it had on me when I got off the ferry. It was quiet. You know, there's roots and shit popping out the roads. It's a little bit unkempt, you know, just a little bit tired. It's changed now, but when I was there, it was a little bit sort of just quiet, a bit more sort of countrified in a way, you know. And I was just there for a year, and then my wife came out, and we got married a block away in St. George's Church, which was great. The Woo store was a couple of blocks down near the library, but I only went in there once. It was quiet, man. They were just selling mugs and T-shirts. Very honestly, I just went in there. Okay, right. That was it. There's nothing really much else to say on that. It was next to a curried goat place, I think, that was painted like a zebra. I think that's what I remember.
I'm obviously living vicariously through you. That's why I wanted to know. That's why I asked the question. Like, you know, just trying to get the details around what it was like back then. But
we would have stayed there longer. Well, I've heard now the whole place is completely changed because they've rejigged the ferry port and it's a lot more commercial now. But it was
for sure.
Yeah, my wife and I used to practice. We used to go down near the ferry, and it was just like really knackered, crumbling sort of piers with old, like, I got a picture of these old Puerto Rican guys with like huge piers, like fishing off the thing, and we used to practice around there, just our rocking and the b-boy thing. But we probably would have stayed there longer if you know, the towers hadn't come down, and it was very synchronistic, you know. My boy Chris, who was in the b-boy crew, we used to practice. He said, "Oh, my granddad, he owns a Redstone in Williamsburg, and you know, there's an apartment going there, and the timing was perfect." So we just, you know, within a month we were there. We moved to Brooklyn, so that was great. Gentrification was still happening, but we were on the south side, more Puerto Rican, so it wasn't that sort of foofy yet. Yeah, but no, it's good times, you know. The only crap thing about that, really, like I say, was if you missed the ferry, if you're out going to a club in Manhattan and you missed the ferry, it's just horrible. You're dog tired and you just got to wait an hour.
Damn.
There yeah, that's it. But thankfully, I live just up the hill from the ferry port. Once you get off there, you get up the hill, and then that's it. So we had that $1 million view, like I was saying, which was great.
For me, one of the things I appreciate most about your art is how you depict Black folks, especially in the EgoStrip series. Every drawing I've seen, your subjects appear larger than life. They're powerful and they're free. You've created these worlds that they not only rule, but ones that allow them to just be. And one drawing that comes to mind is the Biggie piece. So he's sitting in the grass. Some of it's shaped like buildings against a tree with a butterfly on his finger. And there's a cloud in the sky that's his reflection. So talking about this out loud might make the piece seem like it's a simple one, but there's so much more to it when you think about not only Biggie's life, but the Black community in general. And I'm specifically thinking about gentrification when I look at this piece. So I'm wondering what has informed the direction you've taken with pieces like this and other drawings that center on Black people.
Yeah, to be quite honest, I just come from I try and come from an honest place, and I find it very, going back to what you said, I find it fascinating where people, they find their own narratives in each piece. And again, I'm on the train just inking it. I don't rough out in pencil, so I'm just going in straight away. I've got reference of him, and I remember I'm feeling his huge legacy that he left, but I'm looking at him again in a different way as a person. That our perception of him is one thing, but you know, everyone is laughing, they're having good days, having days where they just feel insecure and they want a hug. Or you know what I mean? There's all this whole gamut of the human existence, all the whole polarity.
Mm-hmm.
For some reason I just chose in my mind just something more heartfelt, more I wanted to express more of an open heart, a sensitivity, and focus on that etheric, the sort of thinning of the veil of the spirit world close to the physical, and maybe what he's doing now in other realms. Or that's where I was just playing with these things, because I mean at the time I was going down lots of rabbit holes with very sort of out there subjects. So I was just touching on all this stuff, and maybe a lot of that came through in the subconscious. You know, we're dealing with the afterlife, or the purpose of our life. You know, on schoolship Earth. You know, we've had this. We're incarnated here, and just to learn and to love and create. That's with everyone. Again, it's. I hear what you're saying, but I didn't come at it from that perspective. It's more a heart-opening, humbling, not a sense of irony in it, but there must be days where anyone would be sitting in a beautiful area, no matter how gangster or hard or how much shit you got on your plate and how much you got to deal with. You know, if you're in that opportunity of sitting there under a tree, and that was as an artist, I wanted the dappled light to fall over him and stuff like that. So a lot of it was like aesthetics as well, not just meaning.
Yeah.
But the meaning, it was mainly appreciating him. It's hard to sort of say because it's very etheric. It's sort of
Sure.
But I'm really grateful for your perception on it, because I find it fascinating. And like I say, and the buildings, there was still having that little nod to the humanness. Or the structure, societal structures that will crumble and nature prevails, is that as well. You know, that the only constant is change, and nature, we are nature. So there's all these multiple little nano narratives going on.
Yeah, it's interesting because, you know, just in hearing you talk about it, that what I just said wasn't your intention, but there's all these little details in your drawings that just speak to larger subjects. And I think it's beautiful, and just the way that they come together, you know. Yeah.
Because I mean, there might have been, like I say, I have to think of or try and reminisce of what I was, it's quite difficult to, this was maybe 10 years ago now or something, or maybe
sure.
So it was quite difficult to try and remember what was the nucleus for the idea. But I knew I had to draw him, but in a completely different way that had never been really tackled before. But that was like, right, I'm going to do something completely different. It's just the way I was exploring that anyway, so I went along that path.
Yeah.
Sure.
Dan, as I was looking again through a lot of your drawings today in preparation for this, one of the things that stuck out to me is how many of these drawings depict like the artist moving. They're traveling somewhere.
Yeah.
And I wondered if that was intentional, if it's just a result of you being on a train while you're drawing these things.
No, maybe that put me in a very good place to create, because it was that constant moving, and it is very nice. I do like it, but it's also a pain in the arse to try and draw on a
Sure.
Because every stop, you jump in, people are knocking you and stuff like that. But
yeah,
I love the spontaneity of it, and I kept it as people, they just get quite depressed when they know they have to commute. But I was getting excited. I thought, right, come on, what am I going to do today? And it was just really exciting. I used to love it, So I don't think that's specifically about the train. Again, it was the human creativity and the process of creativity. It puts you in this middle world, where you're out of the physical, although you are physically doing it, but you're somewhere else. Philip Pullman, the author, that's where I got that from, the sort of middle world. I think that's what he said. It's in just a lovely place, and it's that, it could be that flow, the zone, all that stuff. But I felt sometimes I was, almost a conduit for something else, that it was so spontaneous and coming out. And again, it was just that travel from A to B, and an analogy of our life as a beautiful tapestry, all the shit things, all the beautiful things, all make up, all the lines in your face. It's all the story. Makes it timeless, for humans. It's the human journey. And my love for black music and obviously black culture, hip hop culture, it was at the right time, and so they all went well together.
There's one more thing I'm curious about. I'm going to try to not take us down a rabbit hole, but so I'm really interested in the letter that you include, the anonymous letter that you include next to the piece you have on OC. And you incorporated, I think, to specifically talk about Time's Up and how it resonated with you. And for folks who have never seen this before, long story short, in the EgoStrip book, there is just a little backstory on OC and his single Time's Up and just the direction that rap was heading in at that time. And then you go on to include this anonymous letter that you found on the internet where this music industry employee describes this meeting that took place amongst colleagues, but also with this random businessman who comes into the office one day. I don't know what the context was around this, but comes in and says, we want to encourage you all to push rap music that encourages criminal behavior because we're investing in private prisons and we want to fill them up. And your bosses have invested dollars in these private prisons, so we gotta keep them full. Like, and I shouldn't be surprised with this, but my mind was kind of fucking blown that you even found this letter. So I'm just curious, like, how did you find this? Like, what's the context around the search that you were doing and coming up with this anonymous letter written by this person?
I cannot remember, and it sounds like a really bad excuse, but I was at the time I was listening to things like Red Ice Radio and Veritas Radio and just going down rabbit holes, everything in between, just our whole existence, where we come from, where we're going, why we're here, all this stuff and everything in between. And it may have been from, I like joining the dots, you know what I mean? It's musically, visually, it's that hyper focus thing. So I probably went down a rabbit hole where I caught a snippet or a sniff of something, and I went down there because I've been very passionate about. I could see the studio gangsterism and just some of the BS that was being promoted, and just the skill and just the beautiful culture that was just being kicked to the curb just for dollars and just for nonsense. And so the timing of Time's Up, it was that whole true school movement and all that as well. It's just bang, I was right there. I was always being a strong proponent of just the essence of it, but taking it forward, and it's just a beautiful thing. And so for some reason I really cannot remember, and everything that is in that, what I've said in the page, that's best of my knowledge of just remembering. I really don't know, because it pings. It's beep, 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 beep. Ping, 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 everything. Blah, 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 blah. That's why I break so much shit when I'm washing up. My mind's just all over the place. I'm always constantly changing my wife's cups or breaking her coffee cups because my mind is somewhere else. So that's another subject. All right. I'm not sure, but it resonated with me, and I thought, it just sounds like, yes, you know what I mean? It's all, I'm very, who knows? I really don't know. That's why I left it open for the reader to make their own up. But I think it's very important for it to be said. Mm-hmm. Some of the things that I've said in the book right now, like a couple of years later, maybe I wouldn't agree with now, but it was truthful then.
Yeah.
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah. And to me, that rang true. And it's been said on other things. I mean, I went to Germany. I was invited out there to dance and just to paint at this route called sort of hip hop jam in Germany. I can't remember what town. This was about 4 or 5 years ago. And Raheem from Flash at Furious 5, Raheem, he was having a chat with the whole audience, I think, after he performed, or it was a Q&A, and he said exactly the same thing. He said, "Who's heard of this?" And I was going to put my hand up, but then we had a nice chat afterwards. But he was right on it as well. It wouldn't surprise me. So
oh no, I'm not surprised at all. I found it fascinating, also infuriating, but yeah, it was just really something that I was curious about. So thank you.
yeah, no, thank you for bringing it up, because you're the first person that has really mentioned it.
People's in the place to be. Just for you, it's the Ultramagnetic MC. Say what? Here, what the hell with childish rhyme? Cause the jam is just moving. The crowd is steady moving to a supersonic pace with high the stupid bass with some pep in the step. Cause the beat is so funky, the pace is well kept. Same old rhythm that a baby can pick up and join right with them, but the rhymes are pathetic. They think they cope aesthetic, using nursery terms, at least not poetic on an educated base. Intelligent, wise, as the record just turned, you learn, plus burn by the flame of the lyrics which cooks the human brain, providing overheating knowledge by means causing pain, making migraine headaches yourself start to melt while the techniques spin. The wax is on the belt, motivating clockwise. The more you realize, more love's moving steady by most. We're ever ready like a battery. Charged and work the alkaline, yes, the mystery to solve. So seeking to find these words I've given, extreme and out driven with a Datsun, a Maxima to glide. Yes, the wizard Cool Keith, and I'm sporting my rhyme.
All right, we're gonna do things a little bit differently today. So, normally when we have folks on, we ask them to pick, singular album for, that's important to them for whatever reason. But when we approached you about this, you said that you think in 12-inch singles. So
Sorry.
no, don't be sorry. We like doing new shit on here. So today we are going to be talking about a few 12-inch singles from Ultramagnetic MC's Critical Beatdown. What I thought we could do is just, why don't we go through each of the three of these, and you could just sort of describe maybe your relationship with them.
Yeah. And can I just say, I mentioned this previously, but it was incredibly difficult. I'm not sure why I ended up with Ultramagnetic MCs, because I was thinking, should I go for something more contemporary, and there was a load of golden era from my era. There was just so many. There was so many that I could just, because it's a nostalgic thing, and a lot of the music is attached to dear memories as well from the past or whatever. And that's one of those things, as you get older, it's that proverbial onion, from the knowledge of of the philosophy of Shrek. There's lots of layers on my onion, and it's one of those things. The nostalgic thing, I don't like dwelling there, but once you're there, it's just a very strange thing. It's like you're 14, 15, 16 years old. It's really bizarre human thing. So anyway, for some reason, it was Critical Beatdown that just blew my mind from the first 12. Which was, ego tripping. Which I think we got on some cheesy cassette tape in 1986. No, I'll take that back. It was very eclectic, sort of that time compilation album. Because again, we're in a little town. We couldn't get a lot of imported records. We'd have to go to London or Norwich or one of the bigger cities. So anyway, you had a compilation that we get from the local shop, and it had ego tripping on it. This is 1986, and around 86 you had the huge shed banging beats, like massive 808s with reverb on it, huge, like massive scratches. Everything was massive, huge. And this just sounded different. It was completely different, the raw breakbeat, synthetic substitution, and just the way some of the piano was just left in, and just like, and the scratch, everything was quite minimal and raw, and it was quite close to, I guess, Run DMC. I think they had a bit of beef, didn't they, back in the day, against Run DMC, I think, because on their album cover, I think they might be stamping on like a little nod to Run DMC or something. I can't remember, but it was great. It was just different and raw, just brilliance.
What stood out to you first? I mean, I hear you talk a lot about the production, but what about the lyricism?
Yeah, the lyrics again, it was completely different because I really don't know the correct titles of that on-off delivery, and just like a whole rhyme that doesn't end rhyming. There was a whole the verses upon verses, and none of them rhymed, and just talking about, you know, in your brain and just upside this and that, and you know, it was just crazy. It's just I wouldn't be able to recite any lyrics, but because it would sound awful, but it was just completely different. You know, I was used to Melly Mel rhyming, just funky as hell, but this was completely different. When Kool Keith just comes in, you know, it was usually Kool Keith first, wasn't it? And then said G, but it was just brilliant. And to my, you know, I'm 15 years old then. Also, that was, I must say, that was quite poignant, because around that time, the b-boying thing was sort of ebbing. It was coming to an end, and the lyrics were sort of taking more of a role, you know, from those electro funk days, or cutting up break beats, or you get, you know, I was always more drawn to the instrumental tracks of cutting up break beats, or the electro funk sort of thing had peppers of rhymes in it. So that was near the, you know, 86, 87, the style started to change, and the dancing, I just loved it so much, but I could tell that things were changing. So it was quite poignant for me, you know, just hearing these records that were more focused on heavy lyricism. But that was very subtle. That only in my older years now, just thinking back. I mean, back then I was just thinking, I wasn't even, you know, it didn't even come up into my consciousness, you know. Right. Yeah, just very different. And I'm not sure if it was, I think it was Ultras that maybe Sedgy produced it, because Paul C produced a lot, but I don't think he did Ego Tripping. So quite a few of the 12s he wasn't credited on.
How much time between when you heard Ego Tripping on this tape, this compilation, to when you actually get to purchase the 12-inch record? Oh,
it was years. Yeah. It moved so fast, moved so quick. And plus I listened to the radio. We were broke. We didn't have any money. So it was, you know, I started earning a bit of money when I was about sort of 15, 16, you know, newspaper round, butcher boy, cleaning out fridge freezers, getting rid of the blood trays, horrible jobs for chump change that I would later on, because my dad was, my stepmother were quite strict, you know, I couldn't just buy wax all the time. It's really when I left home at about 16, 17 that I thought, right, I want to start. I was always getting tapes. I want to start buying some vinyl. But yeah, to answer your question straight, to be honest, I didn't get a 12-inch of that until 1991.
Okay.
Because one, I'd forgotten about it, and I was listening to Pete Rock and CL Smooth probably. And my mate Jim, who was also doing the pirate radio with me, he sold some vinyl very cheaply, and Ego Tripping was in that, but as a bootleg. That's the one I still have. And I can't remember what was on the B, because it wasn't an official pressing. And I think he told me, he's such a cheeky bastard, he said that he got really drunk and he pissed all over these records.
What?
And it made the cover warp.
Oh my God.
But I'm still, I know it's horrible, isn't it? But I was so desperate. I thought, yeah, I got Ego Tripping. I'm sorry.
Wow.
No, I'm sorry for you.
No, I didn't care because I bought it. It dried up by then. It was all dry.
Little piss didn't stop you.
That's right.
I'm sorry about that. I love it.
No, I love it.
Sorry. We like the details on this show.
Yeah, well, you get them.
Even if they're dirty.
Yeah, sorry about that. So yeah, still got that copy with a warped cover, but it plays very well.
That's great to hear.
I bought a band, Sanders on trombone. He's blowing hard, back-to-back notes, get with it. Take off your coats, meditate. Let your brain compel, just think. As the beat excel to your eardrums. Core cells to numb and freeze. While I break off an ease, real smooth. Combine the piano, my voice nasal, no soprano is needed. To get overheated and burn. While the techniques turn for the UL, the T's are A. You gotta copy, watch the record play, bite more. Spin it every day, you wake up and try to make up a rhyme that fear me. And let me tell you straight, I know you hear me. And when I'm on the stage, you just cheer me. Up another level,
Well, I was looking at it in chronological order. Actually, there was the other couple, Funky, which was dope. I loved it,
Mm-hmm.
and it was so raw. It reminded me. It came out around the same time as the Bridge is Over.
Mm.
I remember having it on the same tape and just on the way back from school and just listening to it and just getting right in the zone, but having no one else to share it with because there was only about 3 other guys in my whole town that knew like about real hip hop or who had that passion with me. So, but again, it really hit hard just from the breaks and the production and the rawness. I think it was SB12 that they were using, but at that time of me hearing it, I didn't really know about production things. You know, it was a little bit later on. But it's just, I know it sounds crap now, but it's just so funky. I just like, it's loud. If I was like a heavyweight boxer coming out, I'd probably be playing like some ultras, you know, just watch me now, feeling it or something like that. But on feeling it, it was just where things were out of time and just so raw, like Mo Love pushing around Scorpio. It's like, you know, it's like wobbling in the background and stuff like that. And a lot of nerdy production guys that after that rawness that they're trying to emulate that sort of sound sometimes. It's Marty Dan did an ode to ultras, but I love all that nerdy stuff, you know. It was great, but it was just so raw. It was just so raw and powerful. And again, I missed that 12 when it first came out, and I was digging in Greenpoint in Brooklyn before it was known. And it had had hundreds of thousands of wax in this basement, and it often flooded. But my wife and I used to go down there in the early 2000s before it became quite popular, and we found doubles in there, and it had Scratch written on it, and I don't know if it was the original copy of DJ Scratch. I'm not in my mind of thinking, is this EPMD's Scratch's personal, Ultra 12? Maybe not. But in my fantasy mind, you know,
might as well be,
yeah. So I picked up a couple of doubles from that basement, which was nice. And I missed it at the time. You know, again, I was probably broke or skint, as we say in our country, and it's taped up as, you know what I mean, blacked out.
Yeah.
Title, and you know, I love all that stuff, all the nerdy stuff.
Now give the drummer some.
Give the drummer some. Give the drummer some. Give the drummer some. Give the drummer some of this fucking soul we got here.
Said, the rhyming force Delta. When I enter, you best take shelter. Cause I'm dope, and yes, I will melt her. Anyone who tried to even felt the emotion, a thought that they can hang with me. I cut you up because you are my enemy. On my stage, interfering with my radius. So step back, cause I'ma start to spray with this can of ray spray. If you're a germ, filthy like AIDS, I'll clean you up with heat, vapors, scrubbing and scrubbing. Like a mistake on paper, I'm rubbing, erasing you out like some ink. Cause you're dirty, your rhymes stink like garbage. After put you in a hefty, or instead, should I just let the weak MCs accumulate like dust? Take out my duster, shine them up, then teach them respect.
Yeah, and then finally, it was Give the Drummer Some. Again, you could tell the production quality was improving. It was getting cleaner, and in maybe some people's opinion, not better, but it was still so good. Because D Felice Trio, you know, I'd never heard that James Brown jazz D Felice Trio, the sample thing before. So when I heard that, it just blew my mind. And again, the way they just come in and out and just flow over it, and just all just spasmodic sort of blows and just insaneness, you know. It's such a good package, and it's funky as hell. You know, when that comes in, when the drum just comes in, you know, it's just so good. You know, the fact that also, sorry, like Mo Love, he wasn't the greatest DJ technically as well, but it just worked. It was a little bit like Eric B, you know, like we used to call him Concrete Hands, because he was like, you know, a bit out of time, a bit sort of, you know, but it just worked. It was great. Sorry, you go ahead.
That's okay. I was thinking about the chronological order here. Ego Trippin' was 86, right?
Yeah.
And then Funky was 87?
Yeah.
And Give the Drummer Some was that 87 also?
No, that was 89.
89. Okay, so that's after the album
weird.
came out.
Pretty cool. It was 88 that the album came out.
Yeah.
But you had the Traveling at the Speed of Thought, which, you know, we used to tape anything and everything because it was very limited. But it was, considering like Ego Tripping, it was a little bit cheesy. for what we were listening to. You know, maybe it was their way of maybe trying to get a little bit more commercial success or something, but you know, whatever really. And there was some crappy hip house remix or something like that as well. But yeah, they're the three I chose.
Did you ever get into the full LP, or were you just
I
sticking
loved
to the
it.
singles? Okay.
Yeah, I loved it. That's what I'm saying. That's why it was so difficult for me to try and think of. I might have got a couple of 12 inches from one album, but then I didn't really want to talk about the whole album because maybe a third of it I wasn't really feeling, and I was like, oh no, what is a real banger? And a lot of Quest came in, a lot, you know, Gangstar, of course, even KRS. But I was thinking, well, I took you very literal. Do I have to own these 12s? Do I have to physically have them for me to talk about the album? And a lot of them are missing. Yeah. So I felt, all right, it's a banging album, but I haven't got any 12s. And half of it I'd get bored with. So I got in a right pickle. That's why I ended up with Critical Beatdown as well, because Gangstar was very close, and also Tribe Called Quest's first two albums as well. I've got multiple 12 inches from both of those albums, but for some reason Critical Beatdown grabbed me. Nice. With that.
How often do you listen to these singles or the album now?
Good question. Not really, you know. My musical taste is very eclectic now, and to be it's a good question because it relates to the whole journey through that electro funk era to just that golden era of rap, and then the mid 90s where it was starting to blow up a bit more, and then really I started to get a bit tired because it was getting a bit formulaic for me, and I went and also there was the resurgence of the DJs, the scratch DJs and the turntablism and all that, what they was, you know, Babu and Scratch Pervert, Scratch Pickles, all these crews that were just, it was elevating that for me. So I went more that route, and plus I was b-boying again in my mid-20s, and so I sort of took a sideline, went off on that sort of bit of that true school sort of thing, and then when I went to America, to New York, that's when I just went for the Architects. I went straight to them because everyone and their grandma was rhyming, and I was getting a bit tired of it. How many, you know what I mean? So even now, I don't listen to a lot of rap, but I still love hip hop, the foundation of it, and I listen to more instrumental nowadays. You know, like Stro Elliott, J Rock. You know what I mean? And all over the place. It's like getting more into Afrobeat, getting into deeper into jazz. You know, that's my natural progression. And to be honest, sometimes when I listen to, I can completely understand it, but I've changed as a man. So I you know, I've matured and hopefully become a little bit more wiser and a bit more heart-led, a bit more open, and trying to be a high caliber person. You know what I mean? And try to be a stand-up person in my community. I've changed. So if someone's spitting some lyrics, that it has to be very, very good, because I'm very picky nowadays. And sometimes it's like a jab in the head and I don't want to hear it. I'd rather listen to something, you know. Sometimes in my life now, I just don't want to hear a lot of words, basically. You know?
Too much chatter. Yeah.
Maybe it's something to do with the way my mind is progressing. So to answer your question, sometimes if I'm doing a DJ set, get back into it because it's just funky as hell. You drop that in just for, you know, even for, you know, 12 bars or whatever, and then change it. I like doing community radio as well. So if sometimes you know, ultras will come out, but it's a very strange time, isn't it? You're in that sort of epoch. I need to just expand and explore other genres, although I still love, and I'm a strong proponent for the foundation of hip hop and the joy and the bringing people together, and it's just a wonderful movement. There's that spirit of rebellion, and I think it'll always be there. I've just gone off on a bit of a detour, but I guess that love for it comes through in the artwork.
Sure, absolutely.
Yeah. I think it's interesting to hear you talk about how your relationship has changed with hip hop as you've grown as a person, because that's a place I've often found myself in as I've gotten more mature and older, you know, and having limited access to hip hop when I was younger because my parents were strict. Going back and listening to albums I've never heard, sometimes I hear them and I'm like, oh hell no. Like just the shit that they were talking about, I can't get through it because it's just too much.
I can appreciate that time, and they were young guys or girls.
Sure.
Right.
Sure.
That's what I'm saying. So it's all part. Like I see it now as I say, if you're listening to old R&B. I mean, the original, R&B. My boy Kenny's he's a Rasta man. I'm rambling here, but we love playing petanque. We're down the beach playing petanque. So he schools me on old stuff like Mento, the original Jamaican music, before Calypso, and just all this lovely knowledge and beautiful. I love joining the dots again as well, and I'm enjoying going there at the moment.
Mm-hmm.
I've been listening to Mento that was made in 1930, 1940, 1950.
Wow.
I've been really getting into it. It's just lovely, and I'm not commercial radio. I don't listen to. I'm just going down my own lane right now, and Blue Lab beats, which are contemporary, just brilliant musicians.
Yeah, I know them.
I love their stuff.
Love them. Yeah.
So it's all over the place. It
Yeah.
really is. It's just, I'm enjoying that right now. I love genres that cross-pollinate, or is in that segue of cross-pollinating another type, and you can't really put it in a category.
Yeah.
So that's what I'm really enjoying right now. A lot of it is more jazz orientated, to be honest. There might be a time then I'll get back into sort of hard lyrics again, and because there's so much talent out there. But right now, the human spoken voice for me isn't doing it for me right now. It feels horrible saying that, but
it's your truth though.
Yeah. Just where you're at.
Yeah, that's right. That's all I can speak in, and it's either going to be sung, but mainly instrumental.
Yeah.
But I was still listening to the Fanatic B Word, a couple of days ago, and I whacked it right up and just jumping around the place is brilliant. You know what I mean? Just everything is so good.
Yeah.
But it's peppered nowadays with lots of different other stuff.
Well, I'm grateful for this singles chat and our ability to do something different. So I appreciate your thoughts on these 3 singles and Critical Beatdown as a whole. This was a good convo.
Yeah, you know what? I'm going to listen to that tomorrow. Really, everything I've said there, I'm going to completely just.
You're going to go back, okay?
Yeah, see how long I last on the album though, because I might get sidetracked into something else. So
Yeah.
halfway through. Full of contradictions. Sorry.
No,
You're human.
it's quite all right. Yeah, exactly. Dan, is there anything you want folks to know about upcoming projects? Anything you're working on that you can share?
I've just been doing a lot of live art and focusing on murals. So I've got a one-man gallery show coming up in June, which is great. That'll be the first time I've done a one-man show in Brighton at Gallery 242. So I'll promote that closer to the time.
Nice.
Okay.
With the 50th anniversary coming up this year, hopefully I'll be out in New York, maybe doing some live things. I mean, I've been talking to Robert Glasper, and so that would be very good. Because he wants to work with me, but he can't figure out what he wants me to do yet. And I said, I do a lot of live stuff as well. So just imagine in the back of Blue Note or something like that, where he's, you know what I mean? That'd be pretty special.
Yeah.
So there's lots of things coming on. I can't really talk about the stuff I'm doing with Jay, apart from story to tell is still being still evolving, and it's still product being put out. The gallery is what I'm going to focus on. Hopefully putting out some T-shirts, which I haven't really done before. That's it really.
The book is still out there, right? Folks can still...
No, that's all sold out. out. I'm working on the book too.
The PDF is still
PDF
available.
version,
the physical copy is sold.
Okay.
Which is is sort of a bit sad, but my wife is relieved that it's gone for now, because there was books piling up all over the place. Our flat back, the apartment back now. So yes, so the book's gone, the PDF and the ebook's still available. Prints are available, from Dan Lish, www.bigcartel.com. Book 2 is coming along well.
Nice.
It's probably going to be larger than book 1.
Mm.
I wanted a trivium, a 3, but there isn't enough to do 3, but enough to do a large 2.
Mm.
So
Okay.
working on that. But with all the other little projects, freelance and my regular gig, working for the video game industry, you know, I don't want to spread myself too thin, you know what I mean?
Sure.
So, yeah, and family and stuff, you know.
Yeah,
Right.
sure. Yeah. It's a balance.
Mm-hmm.
That's right. Yes. Everything is a balance.
Check that out, folks. We're excited for EgoStrip Book 2. And Dan, this has been a lovely chat. Thank you so much for joining us.
Yes.
It was a pleasure speaking with you.
I'm sorry. Yeah, I probably rambled like
No.
anything.
No.
Oh, all good.
No, you were good. We love the stories too, so
Absolutely.
we appreciate it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I had a really good time. Thank you very much for inviting me on.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Anytime. This has been The Next Movement, folks. Thanks for listening. Peace.
Yo, what's up, Cool Keith? Yo, what up, Set J? Yo, what's up, Trav? What's up, Set, man? What's over there? He's ready to get busy. Yo, Keith, you know what? I like this beat you brought over. Told you about it. You know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna take it into my Ultra laboratory and hook it up. Yo, bust this. Now that's funky. I tell ya, boy, we all heard. This is so funky that I'm gonna send Mo back to the turntables and you gonna find a record